In 1984, Louise Hay wrote something that made neuroscientists laugh. She said our thoughts create body chemistry that other people can feel, that there's an invisible frequency emanating from us, attracting or repelling those around us. Scientists dismissed it as pseudoscience. Woo-woo. Nonsense. 40 years later, they discovered she was right. And what they uncovered will completely change how you understand attraction. Because it's not about perfume, clothes, or pickup artist techniques. It's about 3 specific neurotransmitters your brain produces, creating a unique chemical signature, a signature men unconsciously detect, making them feel addicted. But here's what's truly unsettling. Most women are doing the exact opposite of what they should be doing to activate these neurotransmitters. They're literally programming their brains to repel instead of attract. Louise Hay discovered this while dying of cancer, utterly alone. When everyone abandoned her, she had to find a way to rebuild not only her health, but her ability to connect with people in a way she'd never experienced before. What she discovered changed everything. Let's start with the first neurotransmitter, what scientists call the molecule of trust. It's called oxytocin. You've probably heard of it. It's released during childbirth, during sex, when we hug someone. But what most people don't know is that there are specific ways to activate oxytocin production that make people feel instantly safe and connected in your presence. Louise Hay discovered this by accident. She was in a bookstore in 1978, 3 years before the cancer diagnosis that would change her life forever. A man approached her and said, "I don't know why, but I feel at home when I'm around you." She was confused. They had only talked for 5 minutes about books, nothing intimate or deep, but something had happened, something she couldn't explain. Years later, when she began studying the mind-body connection, she realized what had happened that day and how to replicate that effect whenever she wanted. The secret was in how she talked to herself. See, when Louise was in that bookstore, she'd just come from a therapy session where she'd worked through some deep-seated beliefs about herself. She was in a state that neuroscientists today call heart coherence. Her brain and heart were literally synchronized, and that created a specific chemical cascade: oxytocin, serotonin, and the third neurotransmitter we'll discuss shortly. But first, let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah came to my office 6 months ago, completely devastated. She was 34, intelligent, successful, beautiful, but she couldn't maintain a relationship for more than 3 months. "It's like I'm invisible," she told me. "Men are interested at first, but then it's like something about me pushes them away." I asked her to tell me about her inner dialogue, what she thought about herself throughout the day. What she told me broke my heart. I wake up thinking about what I did wrong in the previous relationship. During the day, I wonder if I'm interesting enough, if I'm too clingy, if I'm talking too much. At night, I analyze every interaction of the day, looking for signs of rejection. Sarah was literally poisoning her own brain. Every negative thought about herself was creating a cascade of cortisol, the stress hormone. And when you're chronically stressed, your body can't produce oxytocin properly. It's like trying to plant flowers in poisoned soil. But here's what's fascinating. Louise Hay discovered the antidote to this decades before neuroscience explained the mechanism. She called them affirmations. But what she was really doing was targeted neuroplasticity. She was literally reprogramming the neural circuits responsible for self-perception. And when you change your self-perception at a neural level, your brain chemistry changes too. Let me show you how this works in practice. Louise Hay developed a specific technique she used every morning. She looked herself in the mirror and said, "I love and accept myself exactly as I am." But it wasn't just the words. It was how she said them. She took a deep breath before speaking, placed her hand on her heart, and visualized the words descending into the cells of her body. What she didn't know at the time is that she was activating the vagus nerve, the largest nerve in the parasympathetic nervous system, the nerve responsible for releasing oxytocin. When you activate the vagus nerve consciously and purposefully, something extraordinary happens. Your brain enters a state of coherence, and in that state, you become a human magnet. People feel good in your presence without knowing why. Conversations flow naturally. Men open up to you in ways they can't even explain. But there's a problem. Most people are doing the opposite. They wake up and immediately check their phones. This activates the sympathetic nervous system. Cortisol floods the system. The vagus nerve deactivates. They eat breakfast worrying about work. More cortisol. In traffic, they get angry. Adrenaline joins the stress cocktail. And when they finally meet someone they might be romantically interested in, their nervous system is completely dysregulated. There's no oxytocin available, only stress hormones. It's like trying to seduce someone while being chased by a tiger. Now let's talk about this second neurotransmitter. This one is even more powerful than oxytocin. It's called dopamine, the molecule of motivation. Louise Hay discovered something about dopamine that the pharmaceutical industry has spent billions trying to artificially replicate. She discovered how to activate the natural production of dopamine in a way that not only made her feel incredible, but also made other people addicted to the feeling of being around her. The secret was in a technique she called anticipatory gratitude. It works like this. Instead of feeling gratitude for what has already happened, you feel gratitude for what is yet to happen, for the love you're yet to receive, for the connection you're yet to experience. This might sound like surface-level positive thinking, but neurologically, it's profoundly sophisticated. When you feel anticipatory gratitude, your brain releases dopamine, but not just any dopamine. Anticipatory dopamine, the most powerful kind. It's the same dopamine that's released when you're in love, when you're in the early stages of a relationship and every text from him makes your heart race. But here's what's truly revolutionary. When you're in that state of anticipatory gratitude, other people can actually feel your dopamine. How is that possible? Through mirror neurons. Discovered only in 1996, decades after Louise Hay began teaching her techniques. Mirror neurons are brain cells that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing the same action. They're responsible for empathy, for our ability to feel what other people are feeling. And here's what's incredible. Mirror neurons don't just respond to physical actions. They respond to emotional states as well. When you're in a state of anticipatory gratitude, releasing dopamine, the mirror neurons of people around you detect that state and start releasing dopamine too. That's why certain people are magnetic. It's not charisma, it's neuroscience. Sarah learned this technique, and her life completely changed. Every morning, before even opening her eyes, she spent 5 minutes feeling gratitude for the love that was coming into her life. Not for a specific person, just for the experience of deep connection she knew she deserved. 3 weeks later, a man approached her at the cafe where she always had breakfast. "Excuse me for bothering you," he said, "but there's something about you that's different. You seem to be radiating happiness. They've been together for 4 months. He says he's never felt so connected to someone before. But there's more. Because we haven't talked about the third neurotransmitter yet, the most powerful of all. Louise Hay discovered this one last, and almost died before discovering it. It was 1981. She'd already been diagnosed with cancer. Doctors had given her 6 months to live. She was alone, terrified, and desperate. It was in that moment of complete vulnerability that she discovered something that changed not only her health, but her understanding of human connection. She discovered the power of serotonin. Serotonin is known as the neurotransmitter of happiness, but that's a gross oversimplification. Serotonin is much more than that. It's the neurotransmitter of presence. When your serotonin levels are balanced, you become completely present. There's no anxiety about the future or regret about the past. There's only you, here, now, completely available for connection. And when a man is in the presence of a woman who is completely present, something happens in his brain that's almost like a drug. He experiences what neuroscientists call neural synchronization. His brain literally synchronizes with hers. They get into the same rhythm. It's an experience of connection so deep that he feels like he's known her for years, even if they've just met. But here's the problem. We live in a society that is constantly attacking our serotonin production. Social media, 24-hour news, constant multitasking, pressure to be productive, all the time. All of this fragments our attention and destroys our ability to be truly present. Louise Hay discovered the antidote when she was facing death. She realized she couldn't afford to waste a single second worrying about things she couldn't control. Every moment became precious, every breath a gift, and in that state of presence, forced by the proximity of death, she began to experience levels of connection with people she had never felt before. Nurses would stop to chat with her longer than necessary. Visitors who came out of obligation ended up staying for hours. People said they felt at peace when they were with her. She was radiating serotonin, and that brings us to what I consider Louise Hay's most important discovery, the technique she developed to activate all 3 neurotransmitters simultaneously. She called it the loving mirror meditation. Every day, for 20 minutes, she sat in front of a mirror and looked herself in the eyes, not to criticize herself or look for flaws, to get to know herself, to accept herself, to love herself. In the first few minutes, she felt discomfort, resistance, the inner critic trying to take control. But she persisted. She breathed deeply, activated her vagus nerve. Oxytocin began to flow. Then, she imagined all the forms of love that were still to come in her life. Anticipatory gratitude. Dopamine flooded her system. Finally, she simply existed, present with herself, completely accepting who she was in that moment. Serotonin balanced the whole system. The result? She not only cured herself of cancer, she became one of the most magnetic people of the 20th century. Millions of people around the world felt transformed just by being in her presence. Because when you master these 3 neurotransmitters, you become irresistible. Not in a manipulative or artificial way, in a profoundly authentic way. You become the most magnetic version of yourself. But Louise Hay discovered something even deeper. She discovered that there's a specific timing to activate these neurotransmitters, a natural biological rhythm that exponentially amplifies the power of attraction. She called them magnetism windows. It turns out our brain has moments during the day when it's more receptive to chemical reprogramming, moments when a small intervention can create lasting changes in our neural patterns. The first window happens right after waking up. In the first 15 minutes after opening your eyes, your brain is in a theta frequency, the same state we experience during deep meditation. In this state, any thought or emotion you cultivate penetrates directly into the subconscious without critical resistance. It's like having direct access to your brain's operating system. Louise discovered that if she used those 15 minutes to activate oxytocin through genuine self-love, the effect lasted the entire day. She radiated a frequency of acceptance that people felt instantly. The second window happens between 2 and 4 in the afternoon. There's a natural drop in energy and attention levels. The brain goes into internal processing mode. This is the perfect time to activate dopamine through anticipatory gratitude. When you visualize future love during this window, your brain interprets it as an imminent reality and begins to release the corresponding neurotransmitters. The third window is an hour before bedtime. The brain is preparing for sleep and naturally produces more serotonin. If you amplify this natural production through conscious presence, you not only sleep better, but wake up with elevated serotonin levels. But here's the secret that changed everything for Louise. And that can change everything for you too. She discovered there's a fourth window, a secret window, that most people don't even know exists. It opens precisely at the moment of greatest emotional vulnerability, when you're feeling rejected, insecure, inadequate. The natural response is to protect yourself, to shut down, to avoid the pain. But Louise discovered that if you do the opposite, if you open yourself even more at that moment of vulnerability, something extraordinary happens. All 3 neurotransmitters are released simultaneously, in massive quantities. It's like the brain compensates for emotional pain with a flood of positive chemistry. She tested this for the first time when a man she was interested in cruelly rejected her. Instead of shutting down and protecting herself, she went home and did the deepest mirror meditation of her life. She looked at herself with even more love, felt even more gratitude for the love that was coming, became even more present with her own experience. 2 weeks later, he came back. He said he couldn't stop thinking about her, that he'd made a mistake. But here's what's really powerful. She was no longer interested in him, because in those 2 weeks, operating with all 3 neurotransmitters activated, she had attracted 3 different men, higher quality men, men who treated her with the respect she deserved. That's the true magic of neurotransmitters. They don't just make you more attractive, they raise your standards. They make you attract the level of man who's aligned with your new brain frequency. Let me tell you about Emily. She applied this exact fourth window technique. Emily was in a toxic relationship for 2 years. He constantly criticized her, made her feel small, inadequate, but she was terrified of being alone. One day, after a particularly cruel fight where he said she'd never find anyone better, Emily had a choice: to shut down and accept this cruel reality, or to use that moment of maximum pain as fuel for transformation. She chose transformation. That night, she did the most intense mirror meditation of her life. She cried looking at herself, but not out of self-pity, out of love, out of compassion for the strong woman looking back at her in the mirror. She activated oxytocin through radical self-acceptance. She activated dopamine by imagining the kind of love she truly deserved. She activated serotonin by becoming completely present with her own inner strength. The next morning, she ended the relationship. 3 months later, she met Marcus, a man who treats her like a queen, who sees her sensitivity as strength, not weakness, who supports her instead of diminishing her. He says it was love at first sight, that there was something about her he'd never found in any other woman, a combination of strength and vulnerability that hooked him from the first encounter. What he was feeling were her neurotransmitters, the unique chemical signature she had created through months of conscious practice. But there's something even more powerful that Louise discovered, something she only taught to the people closest to her. She discovered how to use the 3 neurotransmitters not only to attract love, but to completely transform the quality of the relationships you already have. This included relationships that seemed dead, relationships where the passion had vanished years ago. The secret was in what she called neural resynchronization. It works like this. When you've been in a relationship for a long time, you both develop fixed neural patterns, automatic ways of interacting that don't require the 3 neurotransmitters. You become like 2 computers running in power-saving mode, functional, but dull. But when you consciously activate your 3 neurotransmitters, something interesting happens. Your partner's mirror neurons begin to respond. His brain is forced out of autopilot. Suddenly, he's seeing you again. Really seeing you. like it's the first time. Louise tested this in her own marriage. After 15 years together, they were more like roommates than lovers. The connection had been lost amidst routine and responsibilities. For 3 months, she applied the neurotransmitter techniques without saying anything to him. Every morning, she activated oxytocin by looking at him with genuine love while he slept. During the day, she felt anticipatory gratitude for the renewed connection she was creating. At night, she became completely present during their conversations, even about mundane things like bills and schedules. In the 4th month, he said something that shocked her. "I feel like I'm falling in love with you all over again. I don't know what changed, but there's something different about you, something that makes me want to be near you all the time." They renewed their vows on their 16th wedding anniversary. He said he felt like he was marrying a completely new woman, but one he'd always known. That's the true neurotransmitter revolution. They don't just change how others feel about you. They change how you feel about yourself. When you master oxytocin, you stop seeking external validation. You become your own source of love and acceptance. When you master dopamine, you stop desperating for results. You feel grateful for what's coming, even before it arrives. When you master serotonin, you stop living in the past or future. You become completely present with the magic that's happening now. And when you combine the three, you become a force of nature. A woman who doesn't need to chase love because she is love. Who doesn't need to beg for attention because she's magnetic. Who doesn't need to try to be interesting because she's completely present with who she truly is. But there's one thing Louise Hay discovered that's even more important than any technique. She discovered that neurotransmitters are just the beginning. They're the bridge between who you are now and who you're becoming. The real transformation happens when you realize you weren't trying to become more attractive to get love. You were remembering that you've always been love. The neurotransmitters were just helping you express that truth in a way that others could feel. That's the difference between manipulation and authentic magnetism. Manipulation tries to get something you don't have. Magnetism expresses something you already are. When Louise was dying of cancer, she wasn't trying to heal herself to be worthy of love. She was loving herself to heal. And in that process, she discovered that love isn't something you get. It's something you are. Neurotransmitters are simply the language the body uses to communicate that truth. Sarah, Anna, and millions of other women around the world have discovered this same truth. They didn't become more attractive by learning tricks or techniques. No, they became irresistible by remembering who they truly are. And when you remember who you truly are, when you allow that truth to pulse through every cell of your body, creating a symphony of oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin, something magical happens. You stop attracting men who need to be convinced of your worth. You start attracting men who recognize your magic immediately. Men who feel lucky just to be in your presence. Because they can feel, on a cellular level, that you've discovered the secret most people spend their entire lives searching for. You've discovered how to be completely yourself, and how to make that authenticity the most attractive thing in the world. That's the real legacy of Louise Hay, not the affirmations or techniques. The remembrance that you already are everything you're looking for. The neurotransmitters just help you express that truth in a way the world can feel. And when you do that, when you allow your true essence to shine through the chemical language of love, you become exactly what Louise Hay always knew you were. Irresistible. Not because you learned to be, but because you finally remembered who you always were.